Good morning. Let me make sure that the Discord knows. What we're doing. Hi Tabby, how you doing? There we go. In case anyone was waiting for the Discord announcement, that's up. We'll see about that. So I thought for today, I didn't end up having a poll. I kind of forgot what we were thinking. Like, was it like whether this would happen with just vowels or all sonorants? I kind of thinking about it right now, the lenition probably just makes sense with just vowels, because I'm not sure if any other sonorants will be in that position. And I don't think that I have nasals defined as sonorants. So it's probably just going to be like this. But today, we decided last time, right near the end, that we are going to have noun classes. And I said, I'm not going to do like polls or anything about that until we do some brainstorming, right? So today we're going to brainstorm this. And actually, let me make a new document just so that we have so I can, like, you guys can see more clearly. Let's get the web layout and blow it up a little bit. Yeah, so some ideas. So we had light and dark. What else did we have? Dangerous / not dangerous. That's a little tricky because I have to like get in the heads of Faye and see what they think of as dangerous. I'm thinking, so natural and artificial. I kind of don't like that because it wouldn't work. We can go with classic animate and inanimate. The tricky thing with that I was thinking about is that within fairy, yeah, permanent and impermanent, permanent and impermanent. Now, I will say, I believe that David has made noun class systems that are just purely morphological or phonological, something like that. Purely formal. And then the labels are like tacked on after the fact. I do not like to, I'm not necessarily going to do something like that because my understanding is that hello, Tony, every noun class system has a semantic core to it. Now, a lot of things could be assigned arbitrarily based on morphology or phonology, but there's going to be that semantic core that is active, right? Another option I was thinking about is we could take our four quarts, right, and we could have day, night, day, dawn, dusk, and night. Thing is, like, my concern with that is that I'm taking that theme too far. Now, I'm not above being a little bit unnatural for the sake of art, because we are doing art here, but I think relying too much on just one theme will pigeonhole the language too much into that theme, right? Well, I don't know what do you mean by categorizing by species. Because, like, species is like, if you mean the ancestries, then, I mean, dwarf, elf, human. I think that's probably not a good one because I think elves split off from the Fae at some point, possibly before, possibly after the dialect split. So it's hard to like square that with them having things like that. If you're talking about like different animal species, there's just too many animal species. You need broader categories than that. Real and unreal. Yeah. Yeah, I know. We're just brainstorming here. Well, we can throw in species, um, genera, kingdoms of life would be something we could try. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have light and dark here as one possibility. Um, yeah. One thing is like Fae themselves are super diverse, and like, and also, I don't know, I don't know that this is only spoken by creatures with the creature type of Fae, right? Edible and inedible is really cool. Again, this is going to be Fae are very diverse. Some of them can eat things that others can't, right? One thing about the animate and inanimate could be interesting, but could be like difficult to handle is like fairy is a magical place. So what counts as animate and inanimate might be very strange, right? It's possible that every rock is an elemental, or it's possible that the animal you see is purely an illusion or a construct. It's all very like weird. the D&D world has that weirdness anyway, but especially as you go into Fairy, it's going to be very, like, particularly strange, right? Um, Thinking about permanent and impermanent. I think too, like some Fae are immortal. However, to them, Tony, it depends on like your world and what creatures you particularly use, but I would expect that Fae would have powers that work under certain conditions. I also know that. So I have actually looked at some D&D material about the Feywild, and it's often defined in sketchy ways. But there are lots of Fey creatures. One thing I almost did go with seasons because they're the Eladrin, which are elves that live in the Feywild, have seasonal variations, right? However, when I looked at their powers, the powers weren't really like the winter Eladrin don't have snow powers or anything, right? But what they have is like a set of powers that reflect the harshness of winter. And I felt like those kinds of things could sort of map onto my day, dawn, dusk, and night thing anyway, right? Yeah, in D&D you can talk to animals, you can talk to plants, you can talk to the dead. I was thinking about somehow involving iron. This is my thought with natural and artificial. Think about iron. Now, I don't know how much the typical vulnerability to iron that you see in a lot of fantasy fiction fits into D&D. I know that um, um, druids, at least, you know what? I'm going to look that up for 5e because I know that in 3.5, druids could not use metal weapons. But I'm going to just check on that for 5e just to be sure. Druid. Is that restriction still there? I'll look at the 2024. Like they could use in 5e. It was weird. They could use the only metal weapon they could use was a scimitar. And I'm not seeing anything about that in here. I think they may have removed that. Okay. Holds plants to be sacred. Oh, interesting. Capable of speech. Okay. Yeah, so in the 2014 rules, we have druids do not wear armor or use shields made of metal. They do use some weapons that are metal. If we go to 2024, that seems to be Metal. That seems to be just removed from the 2024 rules. So interesting that historically the game has banned druids from using metal in some cases, but in like the very latest version they've removed that, I think just for simplicity, right? Bubba, you didn't miss too much. We're just kind of we're brainstorming noun classes, and I'm thinking about like now we can combine different things too, right? Fae also deal a lot with like particular how should I say? They deal a lot. I need to turn on my light so guys can see me better. No, I'm not going to update it while I'm streaming. There we go. So Fae also deal a little bit with like abstract stuff. Like yeah. Yeah, well, we had a permanent, impermanent, mortal versus immortal. What about this? Let's deal with this. So we can sort of pull together several different axes, right? So we could have mortal, immortal, or let's because like one thing that I've learned about when dealing with when learning about like the history of Fae, right? Are fairies magic by default? Absolutely. So they are inherently magical. All of the languages I'm doing here are for beings that are inherently magical. And how that occurs is going to be different for all of them. Fairies come from fairy, or the Feywild, which is like inherently an otherworldly place. And so that actually does like contribute to them being magical in some way, right? Their magic is a little different from other kinds of magic because it's drawn from the natural world, drawn from fairy rather than from other planes. I had rationalized, I had built an idea of dragons being magical because, like, at least they believe that they come out of the astral plane. And I have, like, a whole origin story in my mind that I never really wrote down yet. But the idea is that, like, they are spirits of the astral plane that inhabited reptiles, right? But fairies are just from another plane of existence that has its own inherent magic. And then when I get to celestials and fiends, of course, they come from an even further other plane of existence, right? And they're all also inherently otherworldly and magical. We could have Fae, non-Fae. So the thing about like mortal and immortal, some fae are mortal. I would say. I would say that not all fae are immortal. Um, Clearly, like um, the elves themselves are mortal in D&D, right? And they have fae ancestry. What that means is not really defined by the game. It's just a part of the mechanics. My my own sort of idea for that is that the elves would be one of two things: either fae that left Faerie and settled in the prime material plane and became mortal, or they could be um, could have been fae that intermarried with humans and are the descendants of fae and humans. I know that there are also half elves, but you could have something like that to cause them to become mortal beings. But there could be just fae that are mortal in the first place, right? So we're gonna have to like put together a list of different kinds of fae and come up with names for all of those, because that will be fun, and it's probably something that people need, like words for satyrs and dryads and nereids and pixies and leprechauns. I haven't found stats for a leprechaun anywhere, by the way, which is surprising to me. I would expect somebody to stat up a leprechaun for an encounter. But thinking about this, real and unreal. What would real and unreal... Hi, Logan. Your kid woke you up? Oh, let's yeah, I was getting ready for today. I got my tea, I got my sandwich, I was getting ready, and one of my kids woke up. Daddy, Daddy, I need to go potty. I was like, hey, go potty. You're 5 years old, you can do it yourself. But yeah, so I was just trying to keep her entertained for a little bit before her mother could come up, and then I could come back and get started on the stream. Let's see. So what would fae and non-fae mean? See, here's an idea that I'm thinking of. We get fae we get like three categories that are like this. This does get a little bit awkward though, in that there's lots of things that are going to occur in both the Feywild and the prime material plane, right? Right? Because they are parallel worlds. So I'm not necessarily sold on that, a planar thing. Maybe we could have it happen in as part of the system. Because remember, like, a noun class system doesn't have to follow a single logic of opposing, right? If you go into like the Bantu systems, it's a ton of different categories. They're not all like related or anything, you know? I'm thinking, okay, let's do this. Another thing you could do is buy material. Yeah. These kinds of things, right? Yes. Okay. It was sort of getting into the natural world stuff, right? Okay, see ya, Bubba. Have a good day. Okay, so we go with like dangerous slash predatory as one category. Um, and we can have no, Tony, I have not, but maybe those are ones I could take a look at. That would be interesting. I don't know. Predatory and dangerous are not always the same. If you look at actual animals, a lot of times there are predators that are not that dangerous, and but predator. Yeah, anteaters are predators. Goldfish are predators? I mean, like fish are very weird, right? Yeah. Yeah, hippos are extremely dangerous. I, a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's actually large herbivores that are dangerous." And in a way that's true, but I think the real takeaway is that what an animal eats is not necessarily um, an indication of how dangerous they are to you. Lots of predators will avoid humans or will be friendly to humans because humans are ourselves extremely dangerous predators, and they're not going to like screw with us, right? Um, and there are, but like if you talk about like herbivores, the larger ones will probably attack you if you piss them off enough, right? Some of the small, but a lot of them will just like run away as their instinct. Even ones that are pretty formidable, like a buck, uh, a deer buck, could kill you if you cornered it and you couldn't defend yourself. But their instinct is always going to be to run away, right? Yeah, house cats are predators too. I think so. prey, and this is always going to be oversimplifying things, right? Yeah. But I think actually I'm not going to put danger into it. It's going to be ecological roles more. So having predator and prey rather than dangerous and harmless actually works. Let's think about ecological roles, right? Um, we can have plants, and we could further subdivide plants into trees, tall plants, and ground cover plants, right? We could have a whole category of pollinators. Not we're still brainstorming here. We're just kind of working out different ideas of what we could do. Um, I'm thinking, okay, Fae themselves, how do they see themselves? So here's the thing. Right off the bat, oh, yes. Okay, decomposers. I think decomposers and decay in one category. Uh, Toady, I mean, they're probably going to be diverse. There may be some. Um, Keep it in mind that they are magical beings and they're attuned to the natural world in a certain way. Um, I think probably a lot of them would be horticulturalists. There may be some that take on a hunter gatherer lifestyle. Are there may also be some fae that actually live build cities that live in an urban environment. They they should be as diverse as humans in those kinds of ways. Now, urban, we think of the Fey connection with nature and as being at odds with an urban culture, but it wouldn't necessarily be that way. You could think of like Fey cities could be grown naturally uh, out of the trees or built out of local materials of whatever environment they are inhabiting, and they could be filled with life, like animal life and plant life. Uh, yeah, there's probably some some that take on a nomadic lifestyle, some that take on more like settled lifestyles. The the main like the main cultural divide that I'm concerned about is between the four different temporal areas um, of day, dusk, night, and dawn all together. Those are the social divisions I am fleshing out the most. But there's such a diversity of creatures that you could tag with the creature type Fae, or that you could decide live in Fairy, that it would be a little bit daunting to like assign them all one like cultural pastiche, right? And probably be inappropriate. Um, I would say that like these four dialects that we're going to make may not be the only dialects that exist. Yeah. So Raya and the Five Countries of Kamatra. Well, it might be something to check again. So decomposers, decomposers, and pollinators. Yes, I think they will be particularly attuned to like the roles of animals in the ecosystem. Animals and plants. Like, I don't think there's really dedicated scavengers. I think there's theories that that's not really a thing anymore. But maybe we could. I think more dedicated scavengers like vultures could belong in this category, right? Right? And then positive and negative magic. I think maybe I think maybe we start with nature categories. And I don't like to think of when we go to celestials, maybe they will have more distinction of like good and evil magic stuff. For the Fae, I'm thinking actually um, um, we could do things a little bit differently. I think this is doing well. Actually, I think we have a solid thing. I'm not 100% sold on pollinators. One thing that we can say here is like this is not going to cover everything, and we can have two ways to handle um, that not covering everything. One thing is to like just assign things according to other criteria, like formal criteria. And another thing would be to say, oh, wait, Okay, I got this. Okay. So this is autotrophs, anything that get that create that basically bring energy into the ecosystem, right? Um, then we have what do we call that? Phytotrophs. Zoetrophs. Right? We'll go get into like how things are classified based on the food web. Is that how you what is the plant eater thing? Yeah. Uh, right. And we can have heterotrophs, right? Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean, there's another term for it, but I was the so our so omnivore, carnivore. Poser, scavenger. And then we can have an inanimate category. We could have an energy source category that is separate. No, not an energy source category. That's getting a little bit too super scientific. Celestial? And abstract. We can put abstract nouns into this. And a lot of abstract nouns will also get stuck into other things. But we're talking about creatures in terms of the flow of energy in the ecosystem, right? We can have, and then we can decide, okay, parasites. Do parasites go here or here? Pollinators, should they just go in herbivores? Or should we like invent a category for pollinators, right? I like the idea of decomposer scavenger because that means I can go stick in a just a general term for decay in there, right? Inanimate, inanimate can be inanimate slash dead, right? So we could think in those terms. Yeah. Um, and maybe I can talk to somebody who knows more biology and stuff to refine this a little bit. But I think this fits. So autotrophs, anything that derives energy from the environment without eating other living things is an autotroph. So that includes all plants. It does not include um, fungi, because fungi actually eat other things. So this is going to be fungi. A lot of fungi going to be in the decomposer. Some of them will be in this category. Maybe we could have them be in like a parasite category too. Um, right. I'll go celestial slash planar slash abstract. Okay. Um, this will actually fit with some world building that I'm doing, that I'm thinking of when I go into doing the celestial family, because um, I'm going to say that like abstract concepts are more real to the celestials, and that should have an effect on their language. Okay, I'm becoming more happy with this. This is quite a large set of classes, which can be an issue. I think we're going to have to make this a bit. We're going to have to do like similar to like Bantu has the shared prefixes. Probably I'll go with suffixes in this case. In order to like actually to make sure that all of these categories are representable, unless I go and say, yeah. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different categories, which is quite a large class system. So we could think about how we would narrow this down. Another option for this would be to, let's go here, kill the omnivore category, right? And make this prey and predator. And don't distinguish right. And then we end up with 6 categories. And then we could kill this whole category. And then we'd end up with 5, which is nice. And then we can have some. We can come up with some interesting metaphorical extensions in order to fit celestial stuff in there, right? For anything vor would be so it's the thing is there is a very important distinction to be had. And a feature of these systems is that there's always going to be things that don't fit, right? Like, okay, all of our plants, they fit in here. Speed at which light travels over great distance. I think there's an interesting commentary to be had. Like, perhaps from the Fae point of view, we could have celestials be here, right? But fiends are here. And then, okay, we're from a human point of view, we're like, oh yeah, because fiends are evil and they want to take your soul, and the Fae are like, no, the fiends have come to us and they are closer to the earth, so they don't belong with the dead things and the abstract things. So that's a possibility. Dragons will definitely be in the predator class. And they're probably loan a ndakaga word for dragon. Probably just get like ndapaga, and then that will be an early loan and get like nativized. What about nature is important enough to encode as a system? Everything, Tony. Everything. Everything needs to be encoded. No, but I'm actually super liking this. I think either one of these options is possible. I'm going to have to think a little bit about. No, Bliam. The mortals from the material plane will not be inherently prey. So, if we're going by the literal roles of beings in the ecosystem, humans are predators. So we should be in the predator class in this system, or we should be in the omnivore class in this system, depending on like how we do things. There is not going to be a special category for humans. Now, different types of Fae might actually fall into different classes. So because one thing I'm thinking of here is that they, yeah. So a theme I'm going for here is that we're not separating Fae from nature. We're also not separating humans or humanoids from nature. So yes, our literal role in the ecosystem is as a predator. We are the apex predator of the entire planet. We do also eat plants, um, but and like that's our primary role. We do have a very unique ecological niche within that, in that our ability to shape the environment and our ability to consciously reflect on how we shape the environment gives us a very different relationship that any other animal does. But if we have the idea of what is the basic role that we play, it's basically as a predator. Um, Sometimes we often do that in a really weird way, but we're mostly predatory. Um, so they will classify us as predators. There are some Fae, like I think dryads are Fae, right? Let me see. Um, is dryad one of the free things, right? Dryad is a monster manual thing. Yeah. I'm not sure if dryads. They may be, yeah. So Conjure Phase says you can summon a dryad. Um, they might be classified as plants, um, but I would consider them like Fae. But they could be classified in this area, right? Whereas a satyr might be a predator or prey depending on exactly how you classify, how you consider them, right? Um, yeah, it's a uh okay. I think it's not necessarily saying prey, but phytotrophs. Is that the word phytotroph? I'm sure that's the. Oh, okay. Heterotroph. Oh, okay. No, that's not it. It's not. It's okay. No, so we would have herbivore. The other option we could have is actually straight up. Um, so autotroph and heterotroph. Heterotroph is that term. Who was looking for that? For things that eat either animals or plants, it eats other living things, is what heterotroph means. Autotroph means you make your own food. Heterotroph means you get food from other places. Um, I kind of prefer the more prefer having um, mixtotroph. Yeah, I won't go into doing like mixtotroph necessarily. So heterotroph is what eats other things, and then we could have inanimate. The thing is, like, that seems a bit too simple. I think I want to have the predator role and the decomposer role be like yeah. I do want the predator role and the decomposer role to be out in the system, probably. Just having heterotroph generally is like a little bit too simple. Um, right. Like I would collapse in the decomposer category into one of these before I would get rid of predator, because I think it's super important to think about the predators. But this is an option. Um, yeah. Although it does depend, because from the point of view of the Fae, like some of the Fae may be like living plants, right? And if you are a living plant, is there really a difference between an herbivore and a predator to you? Because these are the people that eat you. Photoheterotroph. Yeah, and I think Logan, that's probably going to be handled by putting things in unexpected categories. Um, uh, like I don't know if this is what you're thinking about, but stuff like pitcher plants and um, uh, pitcher plants and Venus flytraps, like they eat animals. So I could just put them in the predator category with the understanding that they are plants, right? And it would be like a weird situation. I'm not going to go into the system trying to define every single ecological niche as a noun class, because then I would have hundreds of noun classes. Some of them would only have like 2 or 3 words. It would be very strange. Yeah. Um, so I'm thinking of this as sort of a nice middle ground, but I am not necessarily opposed to this larger one. This one, I'd have to think about how much I want to go with that, right? Um, right, because um, so Tony, like, I am not sure how to figure that out. Yeah, triads are super important. I had thought I'm not really defining the political structure too much, but I'm thinking like for the purposes of the language, but I had thought about if I like built a setting for these languages to exist in. Um I was thinking about whether to have like three rulers of fairy or something like that. Um, Actually, one thing I had thought about, but ultimately never went with, was instead of having dawn and dusk be separate, to have a single twilight court so that we could have three courts instead of four. And then the other option I had would be to keep our four courts. However, um, each of the dawn, day, and dusk are each ruled by three queens, and then the 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 night court would be ruled by a king. Um, but honestly, that's going to be up to DMs exactly what the political structure of the of Fairy will be, and also, I mean, uh, also like it's an idea, but gendering it that way, I would want to like mess around with like, okay, but uh, but like considering my audience and considering the times. I would be like, okay, but if I'm gonna have three queens, um, at at least in one of the in the Twilight ones, one of them's gonna be like trans, right? But uh, but it's an idea. It's an interesting idea. Um, but I'm kind of happy with this, and I'm debating whether to have a vote between these two or to because like I'm not. So okay, so if we take this one, take out the decomposers, and we just have what does that do for us? I think that no, I don't like that. No. Because if I'm going to do that, I want to be more granular than that. I think it's going to be between this one and this one. Um, and this is not. Can we strike through? Is there a strike through styles? Okay, well, I'll just delete it. Okay. Diurnal, nocturnal, and crepuscular will be involved in a different thing. So, um, if you talk about things that are diurnal and nocturnal and crepuscular, um, we'll get into this. This is sort of an artistic choice, but um, when you talk about diurnal, nocturnal, and crepuscular, when we get to the coinization, terms for diurnal animals will come from the day dialect. Terms for nocturnal animals will come from the night dialect, and then terms for crepuscular animals will come from one of the twilight dialects. It depends on when they're most active or what they're most associated with, right? I'm going to highlight these, and then I'm going to have to decide whether I'm going to make this a poll or whether I'm going to like just go. But like, Tony, that's how I'm going to do that. And I want to, like, Fae are complex, nature is complex. I'm not going to throw one single theme into every piece of the language, because that will erode away all of that complexity. So I think having these ecosystem roles encoded into the noun classes is a cool thing that I can do, while in other places I have the like temporal relationships involved in lexicon selection for the in lexicon selection and in the social structure of fairy. That's enough for that, right? So we'll have this particular thing. We may involve other nature themes in other areas of the language, right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, preserving a level of ambiguity. I think that makes a lot of sense, Bliam. And this is one reason why I am sort of thinking about this still, even though I feel a little more, I feel a little happier with this. Looking at this, it's like, okay, well, but if we just group all the heterotrophs into one group, then there's all kinds of things of, okay, the Fae that are plants will view herbivores as predators, right? And all sorts of things make sense about that. A key thing is that yes, the Fae are otherworldly, but they are also a part of nature. And they do not separate themselves from nature. They also do not separate humanoids from nature in the way that humanoids might want to. And generally, it's nice to have a simple noun class system. I mean, you can do what you want, and there are real languages that have lots of different noun classes. But one thing about a simple system is that you define your categories. Once you've defined your categories, you can go and say, oh, wait a minute. This doesn't quite fit in this one or this one. What logic am I going to use to shove this into some category somewhere? And that is where you get really interesting, like, assignments going on, right? You like, if we talk about Logan's mixtotrophs, right? How are we going to, in this scenario, we have two options, autotroph and predator. In this scenario, we have two options. We could classify them as autotrophs or heterotrophs. Or we could come up with some crazy clown logic that makes them inanimates. Well, yeah, we can just do that, right? And all of that would be valid choices because languages are weird. So let's let's pause this for now. I'm going to turn this into a patron poll, I think, between these two systems. Yeah, right. Definitely. One thing, the choices you make in like systems like noun class systems definitely add to world building. Another thing I find adds to world building through conlanging is every word has a story, and as you flesh out your word stories, you find out things about the world. Like when I was doing words for internal organs in Ndakaga, right? I had to think about what the story of this word was and why it is the way it is. What other things could it mean? And came up with the idea of, okay, well, dragons are predatory. They often will be depicted as obligate carnivores. So they think of internal organs mainly in terms of how they taste, the texture and such when they're eating them. And that led to how I made those words, right? Tony, so this is the semantic basis, right? Now, I may end up with a formal layer on top of that in order to assign things that don't fit the semantics, right? But that we will decide on later once we have some word forms and stuff to work with. So, so we have and I'm glad that I have a super clear idea of what the patron poll is going to be because I kind of missed that last time. Now, what other things do we have figured out for now? So we have morphological plural marking. We have no core cases, but we have oblique cases. Possessor is marked morphologically. I think once we have decided on one of these options, for our system, then we can go in and start making declensions, and we can work on our cases here. For the rest of this stream, I'm thinking about what else can we do here? How would you guys... Another piece of this is that... Okay. I'm trying to think about should I work out anything here without knowing about what classes I need and such. I think it's going to depend on how many classes I have, exactly how nouns are going to shake out morphologically. Because if I have just 3, I can deal with all of that with agreement. That is, I don't have to mark nouns at all for class, and I can do with it. For something like this, that's a little more complicated. I may want to have that marked on the noun what class it belongs to. So we'll pause on that part for now. Let's actually, here's a little treat. So I was looking at my classifiers, and I realized that like we're not getting a lot of the possibilities. This is my early draft of yeah, Tony, I'm planning on at least some dialects getting the broad and slender distinction. The basically palatalized consonants is what you do. I think in Irish it's actually slender is palatalized and broad is velarized, but I don't necessarily feel the need to have that whole opposition. Just have a palatalized and then not worry about it. But you see, I have like too many possibilities that end up being extremely rare here. And I think it's because I get this extra feature on here that is a little bit different. So if we go to GramBank and we look up classifiers, so are there demonstrative classifiers, are there numeral classifiers, or are there possessive classifiers? That's like super clear. We understand. Okay, like people are probably familiar with the Chinese version, and then there's other versions of the numeral classifiers. Chinese also has demonstrative classifiers. Oh, this is demonstrative classifiers, right? And then numeral classifiers, they went with different languages with that. And then possessive classifiers, it's just like you have a classifier along with a possessive argument, right? And then for some reason I think because it was tagged as related in one of these, no, I'm not sure why. I had GB116. Do verbs classify shape, size, or consistency of absolutive arguments by means of incorporated nouns? And so this is it. In this one, we have this related to all of the other classifiers. However, when I put those all in one chart, we end up with all of these options that end up with extremely low, and I think it's kind of distorting what we would allow with the dice table, right? Because like we end up basically having a cutoff here, and then we don't have, like, possibly if we didn't have this, we could combine this one and this one and viably have like one number on the die be for like having all three of these kinds of classifiers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to R, and if you are not a programming person, That's totally fine. I will explain things the best I can. And let's, I'm not going to update. Okay, so um, let's see. I'm just going to have to find that. So, okay, it's not in here. I think it was just in my big, um, okay, okay, I think it was in my big Grand Bank work thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to actually make a new script just for classifiers. And we will, so can you guys see what's going on? I think you should be able to see. So, and we will have, so what are we're just going to go with these three. So GB038, and GB038, GB057, GB058, GB. And then I will run all of this. I meant to run that. Run. Okay. So, and now, and we actually don't need to do this part because actually it automatically, so what we want is, we want to do, so classifiers, and then put our Grand Bank IDs 038, and then this will return percentages. I can also just return just numbers, but we'll do this classifiers. And then we run that. It's taking a while, huh? This is how I build all my dice tables. And I realized that the classifiers I had never actually put in the document. And here, okay, look at this. So this might be a bit more workable. So I want to make a CSV, right? We will call this classifier.csv. And it's going to be, so That's not. Should be classifier sum. And then we should be able to open that CSV. Let's go find that. Okay, so and we're going to remember, so this is demonstrative numeral possessive. And then if we sort this by percent, then we can pull this. This just, I do rounding, and then I do some logic in order to get the minimum and maximum on the die. Except it's not working. Okay. Oh, okay. Let's find, we had this here. I haven't done any of that on my Discord. Why is it not pasting? Okay. Why is it not pasting? Oh, it's so frustrating when that happens. Okay. Copy this, and I want to paste it here. Right, so this should happen, and then we see here. Okay, so we see that we get more here. We actually end up with one option that is just that we get all three. Now, is that slightly inflated? Yes, but this is a fun system for rolling dice and getting an idea of how your system works. So we'll open up our Word document that has our dice tables in there. Why is it like this? So we go to classifiers. And then we can do the verb classification elsewhere. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to paste it down in cut material. And then we go back here. My goal is to eventually make these dice tables into like a document that will teach people how to conlang with the idea of it's for dungeon masters, right? So we go, so D100 D100 result, and then we go here and get this, and so 1 to 68 is no classifiers. Turns out they're not super common. 69 to 85, we have only numeral classifiers. '86 to 92, we've got only possessive classifiers, that's something that happens in Austronesian. And then 93 to 96, we get demonstrative and numeral classifiers. We go here and we go, we need some more cells, insert more rows, insert more rows. And then we've got 97, 98. Is numeral and possessive classifiers. 99 is only demonstrative classifiers. Now you might think maybe I should move that over here, and it kind of depends on how you feel about the arrangement. I would say having it up high emphasizes the rarity of that situation. And then at 100, we will have all three types. And then I will figure out a way. I will probably put an independent table for that weird verb thing. Yeah. So that we can like have that option too. However, I just made a dice table. There's a reason I made a dice table, right? Let's make sure that we can see it. We decided, just like out of our heads, that we were going to have noun classes. But I want to check and see, are we going to have more than that? Because there are languages that have both noun classes, or as some people will call them, genders, and other kinds of noun classification, right? Classifiers of some kind. So, let's check. Consult the bones. 91. What is 91? Well, 86 to 92 means we have possessive classifiers. So, we have this. We have two ways of classifying nouns now. And we've determined all this about the system. We haven't done any actual morphology, like morphological forms yet. So, we know that possession is marked on the possessor. That's a thing that we know. Now we go into our Silva notes. We have to go into nouns. I'll just put this under nouns. It would be its own category. And I'll go, let's go under possession. Is a set of possessive classifiers. Now, let's go and sort out. Let's go look at that and see numeral classifiers, demonstrative, numeral, possessive. So let's actually get some idea of what that means. So this question is whether there's independent classifier system in possessive constructions that is not related to other nominal classification systems. So it will have to be different from our noun class system. Okay. We are concerned with markers that signal the nature of the possessor or the possessum. This feature applies to both pronominal nominal possessors and markers which are bound or free. Okay. Possessive classifiers need not be obligatory. It may be possible to construct possessive phrases without possessive classifiers. So that's an option. Differences in expression. Okay. And then, so code 1, if there are elements which are used but not necessarily obligatory in a possessive constructions. So elements, so they're being very broad here, right? It could be an independent particle, it could be an affix, it could be, which vary according to the semantic class of the possessor noun or the possessed noun. These elements are not the same as markers of noun class, gender system, or other classifier systems such as numeral classifiers, right? These elements are not normally used when the noun is used in non-possessive constructions. There need to be at least 2 markers, right? So, and look at their examples. In Fijian, there's possessive classifiers which agree with the characteristics of the possessed item. So there's a general classifier, looks like. There's a classifier for food. There's a classifier for drink. Right? Well, I don't know why this is blank and this is tagged as general, but I could look deeper into Bahrain. There are possessor agreement suffixes. However, they follow the same pattern as the pronominal system. So this is a non one. It's the possessor. It agrees with the possessor, right? The possessum has a suffix that agrees with the possessor by the gender system, so it's not one of these. Okay, and then you have so this is their index. I'm going to have to look into these possessive classifier systems and see what fits for us. Now, an important thing if you're using these dice to do this, right? We have the possessor. We also have possessor is marked morphologically. So there's some kind of a genitive or possessive case. Possibly the classifier could be incorporated into that. Okay? But what we do know is we have noun classes. We do know that we have a secondary classification system. So that actually might make us want to lean toward the simpler noun class system, since we already have a second dimension where nouns are classified. It all depends on like how you guys think what you guys should do, what we guys think we should do. So we can let's find. I'm going to save this document. So we're going to have to think about brainstorming. Our first question is, do we mark the possessor or possessum? And I'm going to lean very heavily on marking the mark it on the possessor and agree with the possessum. I don't know how to spell this. Okay. I don't know. Because I think it would be like we already are saying that we have right? We're already saying that we have possession marked on the possessor, right? So that would work. Now, just from what I know about like possessor classifiers offhand, possible categories. We could be like size and shape, right? Long, thin things versus like short and fat things. We could have ways to possess. We could have, is it something you can hold, or something that you can, or something that's intangible that is like inherently yours? Is that a thing? It could just be inalienable. Could think about materials. Like plant matter versus minerals versus whatever, right? And I can do a little bit of research in between here to figure that out. The other things we want to do is this obligatory or optional? Because the Greenback feature actually gives us that option of, if you have the possessive classifier, you can make it optional. There are arguments either way. I think because since we have some sort of a genitive case, we could just like make it a part of the genitive case, in which case it just becomes obligatory anytime you have a genitive construction. On the other hand, if we made it like an optional particle that is like just a part of the construction, then we could have some freedom to include it or not include it as we need in order to do poetic things and stuff like that. One thing with classifiers is they are much more like wiggly than noun classes. With a noun class, typically a word is going to be in one class or another. And it's just going to be like, okay, this word is tagged as, if you think about like Spanish, a word is either masculine or feminine, right? And there are some words that are both, but there's usually a semantic difference in that. But with classifiers, my experience is mostly with numeral classifiers and demonstrative classifiers in Mandarin Chinese. There you might have cases where you would choose for the same word different options. Like, so you can say 一只狗, right? And that's the typical way to refer to say one dog, right? Let's zoom in so you can see, right? Okay, right. This jur is the classifier, and this is typically a classifier for animals. But you can also say you can also say 一条狗. And do I have the right 条 in there? I hope that's the right character, but it's 条 is a classifier for long, thin things. So if you say 一条狗, you're generally assuming a bigger dog, right? Most of the time you're going to go use 只, but sometimes you may use 条. 条. Another one that's even more commonly done, you have 一个人. Humans usually use just the general classifier 个. However, you can say 一位人. 一位. Wei is like an honorific. It's a classifier that refers to that is used typically like you'd say like some category of person that you want to show respect for, like 一位老人, right? This is older person, elderly person, right? So you want to show respect to your elders, you use 位 instead of 个, right? So that's more possibilities. And since we did want to have a politeness thing, that actually might be interesting to incorporate some kind of honorifics into the classifier system, into the possessive classifier system, so that you'd say, when you're saying my lord, you are using a different classifier than if you're saying my mother. Something like that. But that is what I have for today. We have not done any like actual forms or anything, but we have figured out some interesting thoughts on how we are going to do things. And I am going to do a little research on uh, possessive classifiers in order to figure out like what kinds of categories we can use there. And I am going to make a poll about the noun class system. And you guys, those of you who are on the Patreon as paying members, you can go and vote on which of these noun class systems you would prefer to use. And that's going to be a patron decision, and we will deal with the fallout of whatever you guys choose next time. But it's coming close to time, and we did quite a lot today, even though we mostly were just brainstorming for 2 hours. But I hope you guys enjoyed it. And next week, after we get this, we're going to work on declensions and forms in order to like shore up how exactly this system, whichever one operates, and possibly get a little bit into like what this system ends up looking like. So, thank you all for watching. I hope you all had a great time. And I am going to say to you, happy conlanging. If I can get